You're listening to the Her Money, Her Business podcast. This podcast is for women starting or growing their own business and features episodes about money management, reducing financial stress, and how to grow a profitable business that's built to last. We want to see women in business thriving. So if you avoid discussing money, lack confidence managing money, or want to struggle less while making money, then you're in the right place. Let's make finance fun and money matter. I'm your host, Sonia Belzarolo, and this is the Her Money, Her Business podcast. Hello, welcome to episode 2 of the Her Money, Her Business podcast. Today, I am excited to talk to Emma Franklin Bell. Emma is the creator of Manuscript Mastery, a book writing course for the woman who wants to finally write that book that's been in her heart for years. Emma is also the author of 3 published books, self-published books, 2 podcasts, and several successful online coaching programs. She guides female coaches, creators, and practitioners on how to unearth their intellectual property, weave in stories from their life, and write from the heart to develop a truly unique book that inspires and informs readers. So let's get started talking to Emma about why your knowledge is valuable. Hello, Emma. Thank you for joining me on the podcast, Her Money, Her Business. Great to have you.
Oh, hi, Sonia. Hello. I'm so thrilled to be here. Loved chatting with you. You know, we've known each other for years now, and it's so wonderful to always reconnect.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you.
Yes, no, it's great. It's great. And so obviously we're talking about money is what the podcast is all about, and money and business for women. But what I wanted to talk to you about today is really about why your knowledge is valuable. So you are a book coach. You helped me with my book, Mr. and Mrs. Business. And obviously you do small things, coaching, book coaching, etc. But why don't you tell us, first of all, a little bit about your journey around developing knowledge in your own business and becoming, I guess, the book coach that you are today.
Yeah, sure. Well, I love this topic of intellectual property and IP development and extracting your own ideas and putting them into an original sort of method so that you can then form assets which help us make money in business, which is what you're talking about with women. So I've always been interested in this, and it's spanned across different areas. And my early life, I had a dance studio. So I come from performing arts, and so I worked with a lot of young dancers and performers and built my own studios. And the thing that made it work really well was that I developed my own intellectual property. So I did write a dance and drama program. And what was so good about that was I was able to then teach that to my staff, my team, so they were able to deliver this program to the young people. And then when I sold the business, I was able to package it up in a nice little box, a bit like a franchise, I suppose. Mm-hmm. And I was able to sell the whole business as an asset. It wasn't bits and pieces all over the place. It was all neat and tidy, and I was able to sell that. And then when I wrote my first book, which is How to Run a Preschool Dance Studio, the coaching program for dance teachers and studio based people was again an IP system that I developed. And then when I moved into books, I was able to take that same way of thinking and develop a system for how people could quite quickly and easily extract their book ideas and actually write the book and have it finished as a manuscript so they could then edit and publish. So it seems to be a way that I love to work. I think it enables me to see things from a higher perspective and know that all the pieces are lining up, and it has strategy, and therefore it helps everybody, whether it's team, whether it's clients, whoever's working with you can easily see the system and know what to do. And it's probably the whole way of operating like this was probably birthed from reading The E-Myth by Michael E. Gerber. Probably 10 years ago. That'd be what landed me.
Yeah, a great book. And I love a good system. That sounds very organized, and I think it's that, you know, besides the intellectual property, I think there's a lot that business owners and women in business could take from that, in terms of even just having things in place where anyone could come into your business and see what's going on. And also you can train people, you can sell the business, that everything's there laid out. It's a very important part of business, I think, that a lot of people don't actually do. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And also, you know, it's so helpful for you. In the beginning, it might feel a bit like, wow, all these systems and this is seeming like a lot to do. But that's just short term, because in the long term, if you're sick, you know, and you have to step away, or you do want to sell it, you do. Everybody knows what to do. And then that's why the client or the customer, they feel very secure, because they feel like it's like when you go to Macca's.
Yes, exactly.
You know, you take the kids to Macca's or drive through, or, you know, when we're on those one day when we're not being healthy.
Yes, yes.
You know, but you know what I mean. You sort of you ease people's anxiety, because they know what's going to happen. They know that Emma's going to do it this way, and she'll rock up like this, and her team or her teachers or people working for her, you know what to expect, and people feel really in control. And you have to do that a lot with young people to ease their anxiety, especially when you have new young, you know, especially very small children as well, to ease any attachment anxiety. And so then I've taken it right through, and it's worked really well with the books, and it's so valuable. It's so valuable from a monetary point of view, because people know, especially if they're going to buy the business, they know what you're delivering to them. They can see it all ticked off. And so, yes, IP, intellectual property development, is super valuable from a monetary standpoint.
Absolutely, yes. And so one question I'm going to ask every guest, and we probably should have done it first up, but that's okay. It's, you know, only the second podcast episode, I think, so we can do whatever we like. What I focus on is trying to make finance fun and money matter. So how do you think we can make finance fun, and why do you think money matters?
Oh, great question. And if you're listening along, I reckon ask yourself that question as well that Sonia's just asked me. So I think obviously money matters, because you got to have money. You know, there's no free lunch, is there?
That's right.
And, you know, I remember a friend, an entrepreneurial friend, he said, you know, love's great, but it doesn't buy you lunch. You know, at the end of the day, you have to rock up and
right.
go to lunch and pay. So we have to have the money, and the money needs to be something that, you know, works for us, so we can do the things that we enjoy. We can also get things ticked off. And, you know, we live in an expensive place. Australia, you know, is an expensive place. And so we have to be very across our money. Otherwise, we're going to end up on Stress Street. So making finance fun, was that the question?
Yes.
How to make finance fun.
Yep.
I think for me, it's doing things where you know that there's kind of goals that you can achieve. So I'm quite driven by that, by things that I know that I can make happen almost, because money allows the magical things to happen. So if you have an idea of, you want to go away, or you want to save to start up some other little side hustle, or you want to save up to publish your book because that costs a couple of $1,000, or whatever it is that you want to do, there's these things that you want to make happen. And so if you get your finances going, you have a little part of your income that comes in that gets siphoned off for that. And so then you're able to achieve these things that you want to achieve, and that helps you, and that moves you forward, and you feel fulfilled. So making so I think you can make it fun. You can also, you don't have to be dull with it either. You know, you can go to Officeworks, you can get stickers, you can have different little goal tick off things. You can have that every Friday, you take yourself off for a treat because you've been great during the week, and so you spend $20 doing something fun. I like going to op shops and vintage shops. That's like a treat for me. I love it. And I nose around in all these, finding little trinkets, and I'll just say, okay, op shop vintage, $50. See what fun thing I can find. And I find that fun to do, and I try and do it about once a week or something. I did it the other day. And so you can make it fun. You get excited by what money can do for you, rather than, oh, money's such a drag. It's all numbers and it's all maths. I think we need to move that away and see it as something that's interesting and exciting for us.
Yeah, that's right. I think that a lot of the fun's taken out of it because of a lack of confidence and a fear around money. So I think that once we remove those things, then there can be a lot more, enjoyment and fulfillment from, like you say, achieving goals through money, and doing those sorts of things, definitely.
Yes, and without making it too big either, if that's why I'm saying something quite simple that's rewarding. So if you've been very good with your money, you can do just that week something small that's rewarding, and then build up to bigger things. Because if it's too big and too far, you might, getting stuck in the trenches might sort of seem like a drag, and you're not going to see that little fun reward for 6 months.
Yes, that's
so
right.
I think as women, we do need to sort of treat ourselves.
And
you can do that, quite easily for a small amount.
That's right, small amounts and whatever floats your boat. So it's what you enjoy and what I enjoy and what everyone else enjoys are all going to be different. It doesn't matter what that thing is, as long as it's meaningful to you. Yeah, definitely. Excellent.
Absolutely.
All right. So Emma, tell me, how do we make money as women from our intellectual property? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's get into that. So this is fantastic. So the women on your podcast, I'm guessing they're running a business or wanting to start a business. They might be in a practice, service-based, or what have you.
Yeah.
So generally, women in service-based businesses or practitioners or in health or any of these types of businesses, you are working with people, you're working with clients, and you're talking to them, Zooming and in person. And so you might be delivering some sort of helpful thing that helps them, bookkeeping, coaching, naturopathic stuff, whatever it is. So you're working with people. And then over time, I'd say the first thing that starts to happen is you start to do observation, right? So after about a year in business or something, you start to sort of move into this real observation place where you are sort of seeing all these patterns. You'll see recurring patterns. You'll see what people are really struggling with, what they love, what seems to work really well when you offer them this solution. And you'll start to see just how what you do with people, what works, what doesn't. And so you're becoming like an observer. And this phase is really great. And when you're in this phase, really take notes of repeat things that crop up, and things that aren't working very well and things that are great. Because that's actually the very small beginning phases of your IP development. Because we're talking about original stuff. This is what creates your intellectual property.
Yes.
So I did that observation in the book one. I could see that certain time lengths of the program didn't work so well as others, and certain numbers of people not so well, and then this and that. So you start to see what works and what doesn't. But that takes about a year or something. Okay. And then you sort of move into where you start to formalize. So you start to formalize a bit, and you say, okay, I've got this new client, and these are the things that are working really well with a client who's similar. And so I'm formalizing what I do here. I'm going to start her here, and then we're going to move through to this. I'll offer her that, and then she could try this. We'll work on this and this. And so you're starting to formalize a bit rather than a grab bag of your ideas and skill set. You're starting to formalize it into almost like a linear shape. This works well. So you're starting to tighten things up, and you're seeing almost a bit more of a structure to what you
yes.
do.
Yes,
because
very
human
much.
beings are quite similar. They'll often come to you at a similar spot. I mean, everybody who comes to me, they haven't written their book. I mean, that's plain and simple. They have not written the book, and it's been on their mind for a few years.
Yeah.
So I know already, whoever they are, they're in that same spot.
Yes.
And you'll start to see that sort of pattern in your own business. If you're listening, you'll start to see that there are certain things that are all in the same spot. And so someone who hasn't written their book actually goes through a similar sort of emotional and creative sort of relationship with their book and with me and their writing as other people. Like that type of person who's doing that, writing nonfiction, haven't written one, and going through the stages of writing one, that, they'll all hit against, oh gosh, I've hit a block, I'm, struggling here. And then they'll reach moments of elation. I can't believe it. I've discovered this fantastic thing through writing this chapter. That's, so that's a light bulb moment.
Yep.
And then they'll have, so they have different waves and then they get stuck. And then, so there are real patterns and you'll see that in your business. And it's very, very interesting. So you're starting to structure and formalize the sort of shape of how a person in this situation tends to go within reason.
Yeah.
And there's always bits of tailored stuff, but you're starting to get this good shape. And so then over time, that starts to tighten, and it starts to work really, really well. And it's turned into almost your own system, your own method. And that might take a year or so. And then you start to actually get even more structured as time goes on, and you will start to name it and shape it. So you might see then, wow, okay, this takes about 8 sessions. So this is kind of like 8 steps that this person goes through. And I'm noticing that they start here, and you'll name that. They start at the foundations, or they start with this problem, or they start in grief, or they start in confusion, or whatever it is. So you'll name that, and you'll take them right through to where they ultimately end up. And so each little piece or module or session has a little name. Little chapter. And you might not say to them, okay, this is session 3, this is called. No, you don't necessarily say that to them in that moment, but you're crafting your IP. And then the whole thing, that whole sort of development from when they come here with you to when they leave, that whole thing then has a shape, and that can have a name. And so the book one in this case was called Manuscript Mastery, because it's not about editing. Essentially, we go on to editors. You can do that later, but the actual work that you do with me isn't about publishing. It's about the manuscript and actually finally mastering it, finishing it, mastering it, getting it done, and then choosing what you can do with that. And so that has a whole name. And then the delivery has a shape for courses and for one-to-one. It has a different shape. And you can do this with anything, because with the dance one, for little ones, it was called Fairy Footsteps. And it was this really cute little program. The whole thing was in a fairyland. Wow. And so that was the name of it. And then it had its whole own shape to the program, what they did first, and then what we did, and dances at the end. And so you can do it with anything, absolutely anything that you're helping someone through and someone work with. And so so over time, and that, depending on how many clients you've got and how speedy you are at working through things, that could take 6 months, or it could take 3 years, or a few, 4 years to really craft and refine and develop and think, no, I'm going to change that. And then you end up with this great solid thing. And what's so good is that when you turn up to places like networks or you give a talk, it's so good because everything's so formalized. You can, when people say, oh, so what is it that you do again? rather than being loose and, oh, I do book coaching, with people. Yeah, it's good. And that's a bit vague. You can say, oh, yes, so I do book coaching and it's wonderful. I've created this thing. It's called Manuscript Mastery. It's a program and it's for nonfiction writers who want to, finish the manuscript and actually get that done 6 weeks, 3 months. Yeah, it really does help with the selling of it.
Yes, exactly. That's what I love about, having created or written a book, is that content still I use now. If, I'm looking for, ideas for social media posts and things, I can just go pick the book up and either take a piece out of it and use that content, or just get a concept of an idea from flicking through the book. And, there's just so many different things you can do once you've created that first piece of IP. I'm creating a course that goes with the book that helps support people because there's lots of exercises in it. And there's just so many different things that can shoot off from you creating that first piece. It's amazing.
Yes. And that's absolutely. And that's the other thing that sometimes people find that they don't even know that they've been doing their own original formulas. So you might be listening now and you've been running something for 5 years, anything from a real estate business to Reiki practice, and then it might be something you actually work with people in a certain way, but you've just never had the time to sit down and formalize it.
That's right.
And sometimes writers come to me and they find that it's through the writing of the book, doing that conscious practice each week of sitting with their ideas and getting the ideas down in a shape on paper, they realize, and it's quite an aha moment, oh, wow, this is actually a whole kind of formula that I've got that I do with people.
Yes, that's personal to them. I wasn't actually thinking that as you were talking, with the different stages of the observation and then the trial and error type stage, that I was thinking to myself that there would actually be people listening, like you say, that are thinking, well, I don't need to spend a year doing the observation and another year doing that bit because I've already done that for the last 5 years. I actually already have observed and I know what the trial and error pieces and what works and what doesn't. So now I'm actually at that stage. I could go and create my IP and start working on something, whether it be, well, you would know better than me. What are the different options for, creating something from your IP? Obviously books.
Yes, and books, or just getting a journal or something and getting down those the ways that you work in a formal way is just really helpful for your own mind, even if it's on a big butcher's paper thing with textures, it doesn't matter. But yes, then the ways that you can use the intellectual property are that obviously in your actual practice you can yourself become more formalized, just so that you sort of, and then it sort of becomes more fun because each formal piece can even have its own little brand and its own little colors, and you can get quite creative within the pieces that you formalize if you have a 3-step or a 6 steps or whatever. So that's in the actual practice you can. And then, as I said, yes, you can refine it and package it up so that you can have someone else deliver it who's qualified. They can deliver it. And oh yes, and then it's unlimited really, because you can quite easily license your work. And you can also less formally certify people. So you can actually certify sort of in not through TAFE or anything, but in an unofficial sort of your own business way. You can have a weekend and you could certify people. I could certify people in Manuscript Mastery. If writers who wanted to teach others how to write a non-fiction.
Yes.
And you make sure that the people coming are, they've done a lot of writing or whatever. So you can certify, you can do license, you can of course do franchise, and then you can, if you are going to sell, absolutely, if you're going to sell, you really want to have this down pat. When the old days, and they used to say business in a box, essentially you're creating that business in a box. And again, as I said, it can be for anything, because it could be the way that you might run a bakery and you might do a certain style of sandwiches, and it is absolutely the way that you do it, and everybody in the suburb loves it, and then you need to sell the bakery. If you haven't done those exact that IP of, we always do the mustard first and then we do if you haven't popped that down in a formula, you need to be doing that. And so then you can run workshops. People also, I think, once something has a name and it has its own logo, and you can also register, I always get the trademark with the R and everything. Once you do that, I think what people's psychological association is, that's a program and a system that's been developed. So it must be a thing that works. And you have testimonials. So people think, that's good. It's not sort of just a on the hop piecemeal sort of thing. It seems to be an actual program. And so they almost are ready to invest more in that, because it does seem so organized, and that's very satisfying for people. System. Workshops, collaborating with other people, all those sorts of things. So once you create the core one, there are many spin-offs and hard products, cards, and
it's limitless, really, isn't it?
It really is, because
it's limited by your imagination.
Yes, and that's what makes it exciting, because it can be so creative. And then when you get to the money side of things, you can experiment with all of those things and work out the ones that are the most profitable and the ones that are the fun, which you might end up having to financially do yourself, even if they don't make much money. But you start to see where
your profit's going to come from. And I'm glad you brought up the costings and things, because that's obviously important with this sort of thing, is to, if you're going to invest the time to, go through and record and put together a framework of your intellectual property, then you definitely want to, be thinking about that side of things as well, and making sure that what you're putting together, is then going to turn into something that makes you some money. And there's always going to be options and offshoots of things that might, cost your time to create. Then they don't see a direct return, like something like a lead magnet that's part of that process. But you always want them to lead to something that's going to obviously, turn a profit and make some money for you.
Yes, the old sweat equity thing.
That's it, exactly.
Yes, I think the good thing about anything that is to do with intellect, intellectual property, as opposed to something that's product based. Quite a lot of the expense, I suppose, is in the time for you to sit there and work out the shape of your original system, and then the investment you might have in creating trademarks or brands or something. It's fairly small output. But I'd say that in terms of the time investment versus what you might then get as a return on investment, is that if it's a known quantity, so if you've spent time doing that, observing, working with people and stuff, and so therefore it is actually something that's worked, because you've refined it and you've been doing this for quite a while, it works already, because the stuff that didn't work, chuck that out.
That's right.
Got rid of that. And so you know what works, so therefore quite a lot of the work's been done for you there, because then you're crafting it and making it tighter and better and turning it into a brand, which is great for those of you who also like to use personal brands, because then you're creating sort of a sub-brand underneath your own personal brand. But so a lot of the work's been done for you, then you pull it together, and then it's a tighter, more I think also it says to people, this is an original program. Whereas if you don't have any formula and people just turn up and they have sessions and it's wonderful, how do they know that you're really any different to the lady down the road or the bloke up the street? how do they really know? Whereas when it's sort of a branded thing and it has this way of operating and it has sessions here and, you know, it's got the whole thing, people think, oh, you know, she does this particular thing that she's come up with. That's different, and I like it. It incorporates this. That's different. So then they're going to choose you over all these others who might be fantastic, but maybe they're all sort of doing the same sort of thing.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the setting apart, personalized, setting apart thing, that is very valuable in these. It's quite competitive in these times.
Yes. Yes.
So that
you've got to have something that's your own signature that stands out. Yeah. And also stands out but tells people what they're getting. So if you've got that structure, it's very easy to tell people what they're getting. You're not just saying, I'm a business coach. It's this is my program, that this is how I am and deliver my business coaching.
Yes, because absolutely. Because in sales calls, as you know, and people listening, you know, you will have had a lot of sales calls, and then people say, so what actually happens? You know, how does it work? How do I know that this is going to happen and that? And if you don't have some sort of system, you might be a little bit vague, and then people find that, what does Marie Forleo say? You know, without clarity, you get confusion or something. And so the confused mind doesn't buy or something.
Exactly. Too many options.
Yeah. Too many options that people aren't really sure. Whereas if you are in those calls, whenever people raise objections, you are able to say, oh, yes, yep, that happens. And so what we do there is this and that. And you'll find that when I work through this section, that helps you. And so by the end of, 3 months, the manuscript's finished and you've got your 30,000 words, and we've worked together, and so and people then feel calm and confident.
Definitely. Yes.
Yeah. So that's really effective. And also I think you can increase your prices. I noticed that as I started to tighten the system from being a general writing course, just quite general, and blogging courses and writing courses, also a bit PC and sort of cheaper. And then over time, I think in a few years, I increased by about 10 times. I think I started about $300, and now Manuscript Mastery is $3,000. So because because you're just getting tighter and better and tighter in the systems, getting more known.
Yes, absolutely. So, yes, and you've got a proven system where people have been through this now, and you've got many writers and people with published books and all that sort of thing. So that's part of that process of improvement and creating more value to the people that come into the program now.
Yes, exactly, because it's all that trust and stuff like in sales, as you know, the trust component. And so I think the intellectual property development crafted with a name and a structure really does help to create that trust. It really does. If you do have some time, sit there and work out what it is that you seem to do with people and start to shape it into a system of some sort.
Yes, definitely. And I guess the first step in all of that would be to figure out where you are in that process, depending on how evolved you are in your business and what what you've been observing, what are the things that work and don't work. Like, where are you? Do you have to start at the beginning and start observing and doing that, or are you halfway through already and you're ready to start putting it on paper and pulling it all together?
And I mean, even just you and me talking about that has turned into a little system in itself. Observing would be step 1, trial and error and stuff would be step 2, and then formalizing would be step 3. So we've quite naturally done that already, just in our flow of conversation. That's if you're listening, you might find that you do that yourself already. So just sort of almost consciously start turning it into something a bit more tangible, and on paper is what will help you do that, to see it in front of you. And because it's so interesting how when you just are in conversation and getting creative, you can quite easily be crafting your own IP. There's an IP for an IP.
Yes, exactly. I mean, that could also be another way of getting it out, is chatting to someone and telling them what you do. If you're not if you don't feel like you're a writer right now and you couldn't sit down and articulate it, even just having a conversation with someone would start to pull that out of.
Oh, yes. I mean, you could just book a session with Sonia and she could ask you the Q&As, or me, or, someone, who's in business, who's used to this kind of way of thinking.
Yeah.
It's almost like a Q&A where that person is then able to say, so what type of person comes to you and where are they at? And then what happens after that? What tends to happen in session 3?
Yes.
And where do they end up, at the end of it, when they leave you and they decide, I don't need to see you anymore? What has happened?
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyone can do this and put together their own intellectual property, basically.
Yes, and then you'll get more and more creative. The more that you start to formalize it, the more you'll start to see, yes, this is what I'm opening them up to in session 3. I think I could even do these other few things that I think I'll add in there. That'd be really valuable to the person.
Great. That was fantastic. So many nuggets of great information in there. And I'm pretty sure that our audience would be thinking that knowledge is definitely valuable. So thank you for that.
Yes, absolutely. Getting it down.
So my final question for you is, as we are, focused on money and on the podcast, what is your best tip or the best tip that you've ever been given about money?
Oh, okay. Best tip about money. I'd say that it's probably something along the lines of wealth creation isn't necessarily the same as savings. So having a mindset of creating wealth is also something that you want to work on. Like what we've been talking about, you work out where you are, are you at the starting point? Are you in debt and you're working on that? Are you saving? Are you further along? And so you're looking at investing, where are you on the sort of, and nothing's right or wrong. You just work that out. But I think for women, having quite a bit of focus on what it means to sort of create wealth and assets. And so whether that's also listening to podcasts, reading books, talking to people, so that money talk and maybe investing in property and banking and loans and term deposits and interest rates and all that isn't annoying and boring, but it actually becomes something that's just in how you can talk and how you can relate, so that's something that I would say. And also I suppose having a good accountant.
Yes,
I think having an accountant who you like, and a bookkeeper who you like and who you trust. I think if we just start getting into the education of wealth for women, that would be, I think, if we've felt a bit blocked out a bit of that.
Yes, or somebody else, sort of looks after that side of things, or I'll leave it to other people. It's not really something we need to worry about. But in this day and age, when so many more women are starting businesses of their own, like we were talking about before we started recording, it's now more than ever, it's so important for women to start, improving their financial literacy and really being across all of this stuff, so that, they have options, because, her money, her business is also about, if it's your money that you're earning and it's your business, then, you really need to be across those things and not just letting other people manage it for you. It's, it's an important part of the
and
business.
Absolutely. And you mentioned some stats in the stuff that you sent me, and, it's always, a shock. And there's all sorts of stats which you'll probably talk about on solo shows as well. So I think having just an interest, maybe just a curiosity too.
And definitely I hope to bring some of that to the podcast as well, and really allow people to just learn at their own pace and small steps, and introduce different topics that will be, pique people's curiosity or women's curiosity to learn a little bit more.
That's why it's a wonderful podcast and so important, just women and money talk. So this is really great. I'm really into it. It's really good, Sonia.
I'm very excited to get it up and running and get lots of episodes under my belt, so that we can get some information out there to the women who need it in business.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Emma. This was a great chat. And I'm sure we'll be talking again soon.
Yes, thank you. And, feel free to get in touch. Sonia's probably popped all the links in there and stuff.
Yep, show notes. Yes.
Yeah, in the show notes. And I'm just Emma Franklin Bell everywhere. So if you want to get in touch about anything to do with business, intellectual property, books, etc., yeah, get in touch and we'll have a chat.
Absolutely. Emma is fabulous. Thank you again, Emma.
Thanks, Sonia.
Bye.
Bye.
Inspired to take action? Head on over to our website, blossomingbusiness.com.au, for this episode's show notes and access to all of our resources. You've been listening to the Her Money, Her Business podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please head over to iTunes and leave us a review. I'm Sonia Belzarolo, and until next time, keep striving to make finance fun and money matter.